when it's there.
We're live.
Mm.
We have an amazing lineup of some really, really cool guests. And this season, I want to totally spotlight law enforcement. We're going to kick it off with Wayne Bullier, who is from the Police Academy across the street, Broward College. So he's going to talk about entry-level training, recruit training, what goes into the curriculum. A whole bunch of other guests that are going to come on that are going to talk about family relationships within police families. And we're going to have our very own dean on, Dr. Durham. Remember, this is the brainchild of Dr. Durham to do investigation with Dr. T. It's her idea. She is going to talk about what it's like to be a mother of a first responder. One of the things that I really hope the audiences will come away with is an understanding and an appreciation and an empathic view of police officers.
So tonight I am so excited. This is Dr. Grace Telesco with the Fischler College of Education School of Criminal Justice, and we're live on our YouTube channel with tonight's special guest, Thomas Roberts. Thomas Roberts is a supervisory special agent with the Department of Homeland Security. He's also an adjunct professor here with us at NSU, and he's also married to one of our finest colleagues, Dr. Maribel Del Rio. And so let me just tell you a little bit about Thomas. He is a group supervisor with Homeland Security Investigations, and he oversees a workforce of over 11 employees, including special agents, criminal analysts, and task force officers, all assigned to the El Dorado Task Force in Fort Lauderdale. The El Dorado Task Force conducts investigations regarding financial fraud, money laundering, foreign corrupt practices, and Ponzi schemes. Prior to this assignment, Mr. Roberts was the group supervisor for the HSI Airport Investigations Group. He served there and conducted investigations at Fort Lauderdale International Airport and 3 regional private airports. And I'm imagining all in the same area, the general area of the greater Fort Lauderdale area, I would imagine. The investigative focus of the group focused on narcotics, money, weapons, human smuggling at the aforementioned airports. And Mr. Roberts has worked in various investigative disciplines throughout his career, including internal affairs, narcotics, terrorism, alien smuggling, and money laundering. And he holds a master's degree in public administration and criminal justice, both from NSU, and is currently part, as I said, of our adjunct pool. So please help me welcome. And I also want to say that he's an amazing father. He's an amazing husband. And I know that because I went away with them in Barcelona, and they were gracious enough. Thank you so much, Tom, for being so gracious with your family and your time. And I just tagged along, and we did a lot of things together and broke bread together. And it's just really, you made the trip. Your family made that trip for me. So as the head of the family, I want to say thank you for that. But anyway, Tom, thank you. Thank you for being here with us. And
thanks, Grace. Thanks for having me. It's going along what you said before. It's a pleasure to have you on the trip. I think you made the trip for us in a lot of ways.
Aw, thank you. Thank you for saying that. So like tonight, Tom, we're going to talk a little bit about Homeland Security, Border Patrol, things like that. I just read your bio, and there's so many really interesting things that are contained within that bio that I'm sure our students and viewers are going to be like really dying to know. And so I'm going to add that question as sort of an intro. If you want to just tell us a little bit about your career with Department of Homeland Security and some of the really cool, interesting things that you're involved with, and then we'll dig a little deeper.
Sure thing. So it sounds kind of cliche, but my career path started on 9/11. I was sleeping on the couch. My dad called and said, "Hey, turn on the news." Saw the attacks. I was always inclined towards law enforcement, but I hadn't really like, how would I say, I was still in school. I hadn't made that jump on submitting applications, finding out about the job. So first thing I saw on TV, I was watching all types of law enforcement responding, doing what they needed to do, much like all of the United States and some parts of the world. Everybody just wanted to find out how to get there and how to help, right? So some of the things that stood out to me was seeing guys with jackets that said U.S. Customs on it, Immigration Naturalization Service, FBI. So right then and there, I was kind of like enamored on the federal side of stuff. The NYPD was there, but I knew I didn't really want to go to New York to live. But the rest of them, I was like, oh wow, all these guys are there, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so that's about it. I started applying for jobs. Finally, in early 2003, I got on with what is now U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Before it was the U.S. Customs Service in the inspection side. So I worked at Miami International Airport for about 4 years. And for those that don't know what CBP officers are, it's essentially when you come in from foreign, it's the guys dressed in blue. They check your passport, they check your bags, they check cargo coming in and out of the country. Did that for 4 years. The natural transition for that job is to jump over to investigations. So you have much like street patrol, you have your patrolmen, and patrolmen, some of them don't want to, but some of them strive to be detectives. So it's along the same lines.
Mm-hmm.
So did that for 4 years. Finally got on with investigations. My first duty location was down at the Air Force Base in Homestead. So it was what we call air smuggling unit. So we investigated smuggling primarily through air. So smaller aircrafts, narcotics movements out in the ocean. That kind of morphed into marine smuggling in that area down south, like by Homestead, Florida City, entering the Florida Keys. Did a lot of alien smuggling cases as far as my first kind of cases involved aliens coming from the Bahamas, from Cuba, and being smuggled via like go fast vessel, and just that type of marine investigations. Along with those, your regular importation of narcotics via vessel. South Florida is a very unique place in that it's surrounded by water on three sides, and that automatically has a transshipment point from the Caribbean. So typically, most narcotics, as far as on this side of the country, come through the Caribbean. So that morphed into eventually I made my way up to Broward, and I worked in a marine smuggling group out of Port Everglades. So I did narcotics once again in Port Everglades. Port Everglades is a unique place in the sense of like one day you could have a stowaway, which is like an individual from another country that hides on a container ship, and they're found. Every once in a while, you may find like in the movies a few people hidden or smuggled or trafficked in some cases on container ships, narcotics investigations. So being on the federal side, our primary focus is on international movements of drugs. So we try to focus our efforts on the cartels and what they bring to the table. So most of our investigations involved all our foreign offices, foreign travel, all that good stuff. After that, I went to internal affairs for about 4 years, and I got a different view of the other side of the aisle. And essentially, I just investigated employees that were accused of something that they weren't supposed to be doing. Sometimes you conduct your investigations, and sometimes it's founded, and sometimes it's unfounded. We would write up our report, and then the powers that be make decisions on employee misconduct. Then after that, I got promoted, and like I said, I spent some time in the airport in Fort Lauderdale. So it's Fort Lauderdale International, Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport, the other private airports in the Fort Lauderdale area are, and that is a hodgepodge as well of work. So you have money movements. So, for example, let's say drugs come into the country. The money from the drug proceeds have to leave the country one way or another. So sometimes those movements are through banks. Sometimes they're through bulk cash, which is just drug proceeds in a plane trying to fly out. So you conduct enforcement actions. You use cooperating defendants. You use informants. You use just regular, I call it old school, is a sit and wait. So you sit until you see something you like, and then you approach. So money, guns leaving the U.S., drugs coming into the U.S., people sometimes, and the air industry is not as prevalent as on the ground or on the border, but you see all that kind of stuff. And then now, recently, I'm in the El Dorado Task Force, which is a financial crimes task force, which is an HSI priority all over the country. And each region has different El Dorados. And what it is a task force with state and locals, also federal partners, and we all put our efforts together for financial crimes. So it could be the movement of money, money laundering. The activities have morphed a little bit. There's a lot of elder fraud now, with elder individuals getting calls and being scammed out of money. We've seen a lot of the introduction of AI into a lot of these scams. They encounter an elderly person and they'll have like a AI chatbot that's talking to the elder individual. They think they're speaking with a live person, and in fact, it's just people trying to scam their money.
Hmm.
We also have Ponzi schemes regarding investments. We have a lot of bank fraud, a lot of identity fraud tied into the banking industry. And most recently, with the advent of cryptocurrency, which is essentially like a new realm of finance, you have a lot of scams, a lot of individuals trying to do stuff like that. So that's what the group primarily is focused on. As far as the job itself, it's taken me all over the world. I wouldn't do anything else in the world. This is like my favorite job. I would never want to do anything.
Hmm.
I've gone, to Europe. I've gone to South America, Central America. I've been on boats that go fast. I've been on boats that go slow. I've been in
Yeah.
helicopters, planes. For the most part, I've seen a lot of the stuff, and it's super exciting. And to this day, I still have, the fire for the
Yeah.
job.
That's great. That's wonderful. So look, let's we're going to shift just a little bit. We'll start with some easier questions.
Mhm.
And this is a complex when we're talking about the Department of Homeland Security and we're talking about protecting the homeland. This is not an easy one sentence answer. Like you can sit in a bar and you can have a drink with somebody and you can talk about these issues and they real sound so simple. Like the
Mhm.
answer and the resolution is so easy, but it isn't easy and it's complicated. So just like in terms of like big picture view, from your perspective on the ground and based on what you've been involved with and what you're involved with now, what are some of the biggest misconceptions do you think the public has about Border Patrol and immigration enforcement today, in general?
But, I think in South Florida, since it's a large, pot of different countries and citizens of different countries and different ethnic backgrounds and stuff like that, I think the biggest misconception is that the enforcement arms, especially, I'm going to speak for my agency, in my experience, but that that the agencies are out there rounding up people like on a day-to-day basis. I think that they think that, we're just doing roadblocks and those kind of things. There are those instances on, some areas of the country, but for the most part, most of the actions that my agency takes, as far as my experience is, they're very targeted. So it's not necessarily we're not running around trying to, snatch parents and kids up on the corner. It's more like we're focusing on the immigration aspect of it. It would be focusing on individual with criminal records that are in the country contrary to law. And in addition to that, they've also violated the country's laws in itself. So those are the primary individuals we go after, and public safety threats. So the public safety threats are a nuisance and as well as a threat to the community at large, both legal and illegal populations. So these are individuals like that are gang related, that have multiple DUIs in the community, that have human smuggling, human trafficking, battery, you name it. Domestic violence is a big one. So primarily we're targeting specific groups and individuals that have these issues behind them.
Right, right. Okay. Um, I know that the mission of the Department of Homeland Security has evolved over time, and that sometimes it shifts with the landscape, with public opinion, with changing priorities from different administrations, all of that. So, what do you think about how the mission maybe has changed, and And I guess a second part to that question is also, so when there's all this like shifting landscape politically and different administrations, having to like navigate that dance, how does the rank and file, how do the officers themselves, the agents themselves sort of navigate and adjust to shifting political landscapes?
Sure. I think the agents and officers of ICE or Homeland Security investigations, for the most part, are all resilient in the entire work that they do. So ICE and HSI being an agency involved in the enforcement of immigration laws, the political landscape always dictates the mission that we're on, right? So, for example, during prior administration, immigration might not have been the largest priority. Of course, aside from the public safety risks, that those were always a priority. But with the shift to the new administration, yes, there is a larger focus on immigration enforcement, and immigration enforcement, in itself is a violation of law coming into the country legally. And in addition to that, if there's additional factors, then, those are at play. But yes, whenever there's shifts in administration, there's also shifts in priority. Um, for example, in, let's say, my group, maybe a year ago, we were focused on maybe solely financial investigations involving foreign nationals or cartels and stuff like that. And then now with the new administration, we just I tell my employees, you got to tighten up your boots, and we also have additional responsibilities now. So now we have to enforce immigration laws more vigorously, and also focus on what we were focused on before. So that work never stops either. So in essence, the employees are working harder and more hours, and you know, they're bred to the way of they have to deal with it and work forward.
So would you say that the mission has changed or changes, that it's sort of like it's fluid, the
Yeah,
mission?
the mission's always fluid, right? So the
Hmm.
mission is in our agency, we have so many responsibilities that one day, you could be focused on purely immigration because that's what is the priority and what is the most important thing right now at the moment. Other days it's tackling fentanyl coming across the border and being, a threat to society in general. So, with the amount of fentanyl can kill a large portion of individuals that come in contact with it. So a few months ago, even now, fentanyl is a huge priority in the sense of like, you have these cartels making candy that look like fentanyl and fentanyl that looks like candy, and they're passing it on the streets. God forbid a child gets a hold of that, they're done. I think there was a case in New York, if I'm not mistaken. It was a daycare facility, and they were storing narcotics, fentanyl, in the floorboards of the daycare. Two or three of the children passed away just by smelling it like from afar.
Wow.
So, just that in itself is a priority. There's just so many priorities at any given time that, all the agents have to adapt, overcome, and move forward. And just, do what you got to do.
Right, right, exactly. Well, yeah, that's the case also with like local law enforcement. I spent
Hmm.
20 years NYPD, and every time there's a new commissioner, there's a new mission. Every time
Right.
there's a new mayor, there's a new mission. And then we just it almost like it's like a duck's back, like the water just falls right off. It's like, okay, whatever, just keep it moving. Let's go.
Hmm.
Whatever it is that
Yeah.
we have to do, we have to do. But it's really clear, like you do have a mission, and that is to protect the homeland from
Correct.
domestic and foreign
Born.
terrorists and
100%.
hostile governments and
Yep.
hostile individuals. And like my next question is about like the human side, right? So there's this, the human side and the policy side of immigration, and you must really see this firsthand. How do you personally navigate sometimes, the I don't want to say the tensions between enforcing the law and the humanitarian crisis, but it's like sad when and every single side of this argument is going to portray or highlight something that's happening real at the border, let's say, and it breaks your heart. It's like, oh, this person that was trying to do the right thing and wants to find a better life and is fleeing a terrible situation in their country, in their homeland, and they come here for a better life, and we've been a country of embracing immigrants. My family, my both sides of my
Yep.
family, are immigrants. I don't know anybody who's not an immigrant unless they're Native American and they're indigenous. I don't know. Are
Mhm.
we still allowed to say that
Yeah.
out loud? Or maybe we're not. I don't know.
Well, just like yourself, both of my parents are immigrants. My mom was Cuban and came in the 50s to the United States. My dad's Argentinian and came in the early 70s to the United States. I think that the biggest caveat is that there's legal pathways and there's not legal pathways.
Right.
So, there is opportunity to come to the United States, and it is an open land, like as far as like welcoming immigrants, but with the added responsibility on the immigrant side to follow the rule of law and do it correctly. Um, as far as the human side of it, everybody's a human. Like nobody, I haven't met one agent that is so callous and just doesn't have a heart that they don't feel sorry or bad for individuals if they do get caught up in the immigration process. Yes, is it an internal conflict between each individual agent as far as like dealing with the enforcement of the law, which is your job and your responsibility and the commitment you made to your country, really,
Mm.
and the individual that's seeking help. Um, I think what we have now is we just have a large system. Do I think it needs maybe some kind of fixing at some point? I think it does. I think I think it's been a while since the last immigration reform. That's my personal opinion. And you see it at play when Congress is in session and both governmental parties are back and forth, and nobody can come to an agreement, frankly, as to what needs to be done.
Right.
We do, well, as far as the humanitarian part of it, we do have an asylum process in the U.S. Um, and people flee and people, present themselves at a port of entry. So, for example, um, if you're claiming asylum to a country and you're seeking help or seeking, some kind of way to possibly stay, there's a huge difference between presenting yourself at a port of entry and claiming asylum to the first immigration officer you see and just sneaking across the border. So
Mhm.
if you just sneak across the border, it's almost like you're just flagrantly saying, I just don't want to be inspected. I just, just want to sneak in. Another caveat is the asylum process, and that's as humane as it can get. For the most part, people come in, in some instances, depending on what kind of policies are in place at the time, they could be detained as a family unit, or frankly, as long as we know their whereabouts and stuff like that, they just go through the regular immigration court proceedings. So there's individuals that review their process, their packages. They go in front of a judge. I see a lot of media that saying always like that ICE or HSI are just deporting people, like deporting. All the individuals that I've ever gotten in contact with, they see judges. There's some certain instances where um, the type of apprehension or if they've been apprehended before, those kind of factors would you know make it so that they would get removed almost immediately because they've already been removed. But
Right.
if you're in their asylum process, for the most part, you see a judge, and the judge is the one that makes the ultimate decision on whether the family unit could stay or not, or whether they have the grounds for it.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
it's always a battle, right? I'm up here for support facilitator for my agency, for my the area around here. I've received training on life stuff, right? Like law enforcement, as you know, very stressful job. Often, on the federal, we just spoke about the federal side of it. On the state side of it is you may encounter parents that abuse the children, right? And you have to take children away from the parents. Like, is it heartbreaking? Does it rip at your heart? 100%. You're
Mm.
taking that child. The child doesn't know sometimes that they're even being abused. They think it's normal. They think it's rational. All they see is, men in blue or women in blue taking the children away, taking them away from their parents and putting them in foster care. They just don't understand. They haven't reached that age. So on the immigration side, it's very similar to the state and local side. But yeah, the agents get stressed out. Sometimes they need to talk about stuff. Remember, a large portion, I would say 90% of agents and officers have children as well. And it's just, it's a hard life. It's a hard thing to see, but it's something that comes with the job, I guess.
Yeah. Like we're academics, right? Or
Mhm.
pracademics. That's Dr.
Mhm.
Jennifer Allen's terminology. I think she's the one that brought that up. But anyway, we're practitioners and academics at the same time,
Mhm.
where we rely upon the evidence, the empirical data, right?
Mhm.
So what I wonder if you know this, or even if you can speak on it anecdotally, like the way sometimes, and it depends on the side of the argument you're on, but it almost seems like either we're painting this immigrant, right? We're painting this individual, and I love that you said everyone's human. Yes, let's remember that. Right. Okay. So we have these folks, right, that are meaning well, but not following the guideline or the rules. They're trying to get around the rules, maybe for whatever the reasons are. Maybe they don't have the resources. Maybe they don't even understand what the rules are. Maybe they don't even know what the protocol is. Maybe they don't know how to get in legally. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is. I don't know what their educational level is. All of
Mhm.
that, right? I don't know what's motivating them to leave their country. Fine. But there's a group of folks who seeking a better way to live.
Mhm.
Then there are folks who are criminal, the criminal element, an organized criminal element that are deadly and dangerous.
Right.
Do we have a percentage of this?
I don't think you can put it into, I don't think there's any studies or, even it's hard to say on my end of it. My agency focuses, like we spoke about before, on targeted enforcement. So, for example, my side of on our agency, it's primarily gang related and cartel related information. So, for example, the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, you have MS-13, you have SORS. All these individuals are well organized in their home countries and have splinter cells all over the United States. And like you said, one by whatever means necessary, they make their mark inside the US. Um, so yeah, you have those individuals. You also have the individuals that are seeking a better life. I really can't say to the percentage. With my career and my experience, I have more of the experience on, like you said, the individuals that are seeking to cause harm or seeking to exploit the United States. And when I say exploitation, I mean everything you name, like drug smuggling, elder fraud, gangs, extortion, racketeering, you name it. They do it all. On the human side, I don't really have a number. I've experienced it many times. Um, I've experienced it on, we're talking about immigration, which is primarily a civil issue, but at the same time on a criminal issue, you know, I've I've been around families. I've been around dads that need to get arrested or moms that get arrested. Sometimes it's both of them. And there's kids involved, and there is a human side to it. I mean, my policy as an individual has always been I always treat people as well as I would have liked to have been treated if I was in the same situation, right? So whether as long as it's not a safety thing for myself or my team, if handcuffs can be put in the front, not in the back, if they're too tight, if the kids need to have time to speak with mom before she goes away, stuff like that, right? Um, but yeah, I don't know if there's any percentage that I would be able to comment on as far as like the amount of people that are here to better themselves or the amount of people that are here for crime. I see primarily on the crime side of it.
Right. That's because that's what we
That's
do.
what, yeah, that's what the
Yeah,
mission is.
that's what it's like a plumber. It's like,
Mhm.
nobody's inviting the plumber or the electrician to their house for,
Yeah,
for no reason. There's usually a problem. So,
yeah.
it's the same thing with law enforcement. And, I know that for myself, there was a point where I started getting very cynical. I was on
Mhm.
patrol, crime in the past, crime in the past, crime in the past, take the report, make the collar, the perpetrator, the defendant is out before you're even back changing, like all of that, right? So the revolving door of justice that we saw, seeing people at their worst all the time.
Mhm.
Nobody's calling the police to say, would you like to come over for a birthday party?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Right. We see people at their worst. And so what happens is we start to broad brush stroke everyone. Everybody is a bad guy. Everybody,
Mhm.
and then we start getting paranoid. it's also our profession, by the way, just like doctors. Doctors are mostly looking for to diagnose something bad and
Mhm.
fix it, resolve it, get rid of it, whatever it is. Same thing with the police. And that's what I'm hoping this season has shown a little bit of the human side of police work and like try to explain to the public, right, citizens, that when our job is to identify a problem and remove it, fix it, change it, arrest it, whatever it, right? And so in the same way with Department of Homeland Security, you're seeing, and you just now said, the only people that you're really going to see are those who rise to the level of crime.
Mhm. Correct.
How how difficult is it to not brush stroke everybody, and that they're all every single person that's trying to get in is up to no good?
Yeah, it's hard. It's in a sense for me, in my experience, it's difficult in the sense of like when something bad happens, I just people reach out mainly to me, right? Or to me, to my team, and they say, "Hey, here's the situation. This is the circumstances to it." Um, as far as broad brushing people, as a human being, I try not to broad brush people, right? And this also goes back to my internal affairs time. It's very easy for an allegation against an officer to come in, and for me in my head to just say, "Oh, they're automatically guilty. Somebody called it in," right? As opposed to you conduct a fair and unbiased investigation, right? Like I'm not here to either go left or right. I'm here to show facts. And the facts are that this is it, right? And then let somebody else decide whether those facts met that criteria or the 51%, right? 51% of it says it's wrong. The 49, it's under. So you went over, so you probably did it, right?
Mm.
As far as like broad brushing people, there is, the illegal immigration part of it. I'm talking like your non-criminal individual, like just your individual looking for the better life. Sure, it's it's a broad brush in the sense of like, was the law broken as far as for my agency and the requirements on the federal government? Yeah, the laws were broken. The process was not done correctly. So in a sense, whether it be civil, it's civil, but it's still a law of the United States, right? That specific law is both a civil law of it and there's a criminal law of it. The criminal law of it is rarely enforced, but it is a law. So, it's kind of like you try not to broad brush it, right? Like I said, like just like I spoke before, it's harder for me because I usually just go after a certain type of person. I'm not responsible for like the border enforcement. So like a border patrol agent or a customs officer on the border would see a totally different light than what I see, right? Because their job is just to prevent people from crossing a line in the sand, if you
Right,
will. I
right,
don't really get that. So they can see, they could have hundreds of people. We saw it, not so maybe months ago under the prior administration. There was just a lot of people coming across the border. You have a lot of people, right? So an agent in that I would assume would be like, hey, everybody here essentially has just broken the law. They came into the country. Within that group of people, you have people from many different nationalities. You said you don't know who's right or wrong. So you have to enforce the first end of it, which is everybody essentially broke the law. Take them on into custody, and then on the human side, as part of the process, are you in fear of returning to your country? And then the individuals that want to say that can say that, right? However, there are individuals that are going to say, I don't want to return to my country, but I don't know, they could be a spy from a Middle Eastern country that crossed over in the border. It could be, a rapist that was released from a Venezuelan prison, that is coming to the country, and it's essentially a free ride to come in. And now they're in society, right? So that's the kind of person that I see. That once it comes to light, then you got to go to try to find it. I try not to paint a broad brush. Sometimes it is difficult, right? I think I'm lucky enough that I don't have to get put in that situation too much in the sense of like, I usually have a targeted environment, a person that I'm looking for that we already know the background.
right.
Um, you know, um, and for the most part, when you encounter people and they're illegal, and if it's a family unit, you run criminal records and stuff, you kind of know they're not necessarily bad people, but there's rules, right, and laws that have to be enforced, and you know, then we kind of go down that road, right?
Right, right, right. I know. I mean, sometimes, you think about like we've been to Spain together,
Hmm.
right? And I've been to Italy with Dr. Castro, and I've been to Italy several times on my own. But you look at these countries and you go, I think I'd like to live there.
Hmm.
If you'd like to live there, what's the process to live there and to become a citizen there?
Correct.
Is it easy? In most cases, it's not easy.
Hmm.
In most cases, I don't see how you're doing it. I don't know how
Hmm.
you're getting in anywhere illegally, really,
Yep.
because I know that when we get off a plane, you have to show your documentation. Like
Hmm.
you just have to do that, right?
Yeah,
So
you're in an enclosed environment, like there's really nowhere to go, right?
there's nowhere to go. Exactly. I mean, I think when we came back from Italy, I brought a mortadella sandwich with me.
Hmm.
And all they do is they ask you to
Hmm.
get off. You show your passport, and then you have to go through. I think you have to go through customs,
Yep.
and they're like, "Do you have any meat?" And I said, "No, I don't think I do." But then I forgot that I had a mortadella sandwich that I brought for the plane ride, and they took that away.
Yep.
And all right, fine, I didn't get arrested. I got like held back for a little while, and
Yep.
then they let me go. But it's frightening when you're getting you're in some kind of like investigation, or
Hmm.
you're trying to figure out, like, are you okay, you good to go, or whatever, or are they going to give you a fine or penalty or whatever. But I also have somewhat of an education
Hmm.
and somewhat intelligence. You know what I mean?
Right.
So a little bit. So I can like navigate these things. I can navigate the law a little bit. I understand it, and then I can navigate it easily. And a lot
Hmm.
of people may not be able to do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, you see the gamut, right? I've seen highly intelligent people that could have been NASA engineers, and they decided to take a shortcut and they got into a life of crime. And, like I had one case, I have no specifics, but you had an individual that was uh, uh, replicating parts for different aircrafts, like on his own. No education, just self-taught. And it was contrary to law what he was doing. But the guy could have done so many other things in life, and he chose to just take the easy way. Um, but yeah, you run the gamut. I've met individuals that are, speak like an indigenous dialect, and we're caught in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with 300 kilos of cocaine, and they don't even know how to write. Like
Right.
you ask them, put your signature down, that you understood what I told you, and all they can do is write an X. So yeah, you do run the gamut. It's back and forth. It goes all over the place. Every situation is different, you know. Um, but yeah, I think the agency, for the most part, and agents, do an amazing job. Is like trying to put people at ease and like not violate people's laws and rules. And we have translators, dialects from you've never even heard of, that the government pays for. And I've never seen or been in any position that individuals didn't leave a certain location that didn't understand what was going on, right? Because you don't want to just nobody that I know of would want to lock somebody up and them feel that I don't know what I'm being locked up for. Like, and I could see how it could happen. There's individuals that just, oh, if you're a policeman or you're an agent and you're like, come this way, you got to go this way, and
Hmm.
sign here. They just sign there. They don't know,
Right.
and next thing you know, they're locked up for 20 years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah. I gotta like add this little comment. Okay, this
sure.
comment came from YouTube, and it's pretty funny. The person says you could have argued the sandwich case because mortadella is only 5% meat and 95% unknown matter.
Yes.
You know who that's from? You know who wrote that? Dr. Castro.
True. He would know. He's from, I think he's Argentinian as well.
Yeah,
He's
he
even
is, but
plenty
he's
more
also
to
he's part Italian.
there you go.
Family's from Bologna, right? So let me ask you this. And we didn't talk about this question beforehand, but it's softball. Today's day and age, we have technology that we never had before, right? Drones and surveillance systems, AI tools, even.
Mhm.
Has the agency and your colleagues help with these, like using these technology tools to assist in approaching border security?
Um, I'm going to speak very broadly here because
Yes.
a lot of the stuff that on a federal side or an agency side is just something that we don't talk about in the public. So yeah, technology is technology. Any organization, whether it be business, education, or law enforcement, if you don't adapt to your environment, you're always going to be left behind. As far as like in a fast-moving environment, world threat mitigation, we always have to involve technology. Um, you can see, I'm going to pivot over to like England. England has a massive surveillance presence in the city of London. So every corner essentially is a surveillance platform. So they're looking at real-time crime. I believe Broward Sheriff's Office here locally, after, the Stoneman Douglas tragedy, they also have a real-time crime center. So they're
Yes.
constantly motivating, they're looking, they're watching. I understand the citizens, how they feel like, oh, people are watching and stuff all the time. But you also have to balance out safety and, being to respond to certain tragedies in a timely manner so that you can mitigate it, right? So as far as like constant surveillance, there's stuff out there. It's no secret. Homeland Security has drones. That's public knowledge. We have drones that, go up and down the border. You can watch shows like Border Wars, To Catch a Smuggler, any of those, and like Nat Geo. Sometimes you can see the technology that's employed, right? Maybe
Right.
sensors that for foot traffic. On the border, some of it is mountainous territory. Like you can't have people just sitting up there all the time. It's just like not realistic. So yeah, we count on technology, right? The technology evolves, adapts, right? Um, you're talking about, surveillance platforms, computer programs, anything you can think of, you know. Any individual coming through the airport nowadays, you can kind of figure out what the technology is, right? What do you typically get when you get to the country? Your passport. Your passport has gone from a piece of paper to a piece of paper with a microchip in it. What's in that microchip, right? What do they do? You go to an officer, you show him your passport, the officer scanning the passport. The officer tells you, "Hey, look right here." They're taking a picture of you. They're not taking a picture of you because, they want to like save some time. They're taking certain pictures of you, right? To see maybe if you are the person that you are, if you're not the person that you are. So your face has so many different points. So yeah, technology, constant evolving situation. Um, yeah, as far as like in specific stuff, I can't really get into that.
Of
But
course. Yep.
100%. Homeland Security is evolving all the time to protect the homelands, for sure.
Exactly. And rightfully so,
Yeah.
right? So I want to switch real quick because there's so many, everything is getting blown up here. We've got a lot of questions in the chat and we've got a lot
Sure.
of questions on YouTube. So I want to give people a chance to actually, I don't know if we're going to get to everybody's question, but we'll try.
Hmm.
But here's the last one. So we were talking before about, your other half.
Mhm.
And your other half is Dr. Maribel Del Rio. And she's, a mover and a shaker in the Department of Human Services within our college. She's one of my favorite um, people on the planet. Not
Me
to
too.
mention, I know, not to mention the fact that she's just brilliant colleague, right? So being married, right? Because this season we've been talking a lot about, law enforcement, whether it's local, state, or federal. And we've been talking about the human face of law enforcement. So you've been talking all this whole time about, everyone's a human being.
Mhm.
Law enforcement is 100% human oriented, uh, without a doubt. What is it like to have such a high pressure job, which you do? You see the things that you see, which are sometimes heartbreaking. Do you bring that home with you? Do you talk about this with, your wife, who your wife is not only an academic, but she's also a licensed clinician. She's a mental health practitioner. So, I mean, do you talk about this stuff? You said that you were a peer support, your peer support also for your guys at on the
Right.
job, and you help them with stress relief. But what do you do as this married couple, as this family entity? How do you handle the stress, and how do you handle the stuff from the job?
I'll be completely honest. I try to keep it all at the office. Like I'm not, you know, it, sometimes I think to myself and I'm like, man, I have a free psychologist at home, that I can talk to and stuff like that. But I really like to keep work stuff out of the household. Um, I
Why?
really, I just don't think they need to go through that. I
Hmm.
think that, I dealt with it. It's my situation. I as much as, I would love for my son and my daughter to say, I want to go into law enforcement. I'm not pushing that. I hardly want them to know what I do on a daily basis, right? Because I've seen situations that like you know, you think about it and you're like, that child had to go through that, and then like my kids have it so good at home. It's like, you just go home and you're like, I'm so lucky, right? That I'm in that situation, that they can be in that situation. Um, You know, honestly, maybe like twice in my career, I think that I've told my wife something that bothered me. Other than that, I honestly, it's just an honest thing. I just try to keep it at home. I try to keep it at the office,
So how do you
really.
deal with the stress then? You must have some kind of outlet that you deal with.
Working out, reading, watching TV. Um, Really a lot of the stress relief is with your coworkers, right? Like it's just people always say the thin blue line, and they think it's like, I don't know, some kind of crazy thing. In reality, it's like as the brotherhood, like you do experience things together that no other people do, right? And not everybody knows this, but most law enforcement people are like very funny, and they're very
We think
sarcastic
we
with
are
each other,
anyway.
and yeah, and
Yeah.
they do
Well,
crazy, and we talk about this stuff like minimization of it a lot, and sometimes it's some crazy stuff, right? And
mhm.
I'm fortunate enough that I've never worked like child exploitation. Um, I've had minimal experiences like with trafficking. I've been involved in some of it, but that's such heartbreaking stuff. Most of my stuff is drugs, and I'm happy, honestly, that I don't necessarily have to deal with those other ones. Those are the true heroes of the agency, the stuff that they go through. My job, yeah, I may spend 18 hours working in a row and I got something, but they save kids on a daily basis. Like they don't, it's so different. And I don't even know how I would adapt. I
Yeah.
think I'm not good. I don't have a good temperament for that.
Hmm.
Um, so I really have never been involved in it. So, but those agents really have like a tough job.
Yeah.
And on a peer support side, the agency provides many outlets for them, like as far as like talking to other agents, talking to peer support individuals. You know, as being a part of peer support, I've heard stuff from agents that they've seen and they're like distraught, right? And I try to help them out. I try to get them to either licensed psychologists that we have on staff, licensed clinicians. Sometimes they don't want to talk to clinicians. They don't want to talk to psychologists. They want to talk to another agent because the
Right.
other agent knows kind of what they're going through and may say the right things,
Hmm.
sometimes may not, right? Like I've said some stuff and I'm like, you know what, I take that back. I never should have said that. But I'm a regular person that does in that that type of work. So yeah, it's a tough job. People tell me in time we talk to the kids in the DHS stuff, and my students in my class, and some students are like, oh, this, that, and I'm like, you got to be tough with it. Like it's not going to be, all cherries and roses all the time. It's like it's law enforcement for a reason. You're enforcing laws. Like
Right.
sometimes people don't want to, like if they wanted to go to jail, they'd go walk into jail on their own. But, it's a
Right.
tough job, but there's countless hundreds of millions of people that have done it, right? Since the inception.
Yeah. Well, I also wanted to just say thank you to you. This is the second time that we've come to you and asked you if you
Mhm.
mind taking us on a tour of like Homeland Security, Border Patrol, Coast Guard.
Mhm.
And we just did that recently with you, March 18th. And I want to say thank you again,
Oh,
publicly,
100%.
for doing that for our students and giving our students the chance to take what they learn in the classroom and then see it live unfolding. And I mean, every single agency that you like exposed us to
Mhm.
was so nice and kind and just generous with their time. And like I remember with the guy that the Coast Guard guy that
Mhm.
drove me in the golf cart all the way to the front of Lloyd Park there because I was trying to get an Uber and I couldn't get an Uber. Just so sweet and nice,
Mhm.
informative. And I think that that's wonderful that our students, our undergrads, get a chance to sort of rub elbows with the real deal and see for themselves. Oh, I'm a criminal justice major. These are the opportunities that I have when I get out. Like these are the places that I could go work. So
Yeah. Yep.
thank you for making that possible.
Oh, 100%. I love it when the kids like get something out of it. Just I mean, even if the kids aren't interested in it, they can see, what their parents' tax dollars are going to, right?
Yeah,
What other jobs, are being done.
right.
Aside from a recruiting tool for many DHS entities, they like to push a little bit, right? But that's what the students are there for, right? To get the
That's
experience,
right.
possibly get a job, right?
That's right.
My only, the worst part about my job is that my job, talking about my job, sometimes comes across a little boring because it's an investigative thing. Sometimes, the younger kids, they want to play with toys, right? They want to see,
Yeah.
SWAT trucks, they want to see helicopters and stuff like that.
Right.
Sometimes it's hard to do, sometimes it's not. But, I think they get a lot out of it.
Yeah, they certainly do. I'm going to go now turn to the chat, the webinar
Mhm.
chat, and I'm also going to turn to the YouTube chat because there's a lot of it's blowing up. So I'd like to give people a chance to ask you the questions.
Sure.
Eddie and Cameron, can you guys come on? Who wants to handle what? Looks like Cameron's up first. Okay, go ahead, Cam.
Okay, we have a bunch of questions here today, actually.
Yes. And by the way, just so that everybody knows, Cameron is graduating in May. He's a College of Engineering and Computing. Uh, Actually, today you said you when you were describing yourself yesterday, you called yourself some type of an engineer. What kind of an engineer is it?
Industrial.
Industrial engineer. Awesome. So he's graduating in May, and he'll be walking into that profession. So go ahead, Cameron. And you actually met Professor Roberts already
Yes, I
because
have multiple
you
times.
guys did the tour twice, I think. Yeah. So
Yep.
go ahead, Cam. You're going to do the YouTube or you're going to do the webinar?
I'm on webinar.
Okay, very good. Go.
All right, so the first one that we have is from Dave. What's the most challenging aspect in Homeland Security in the current state of the world?
Hmm. I would say the most challenging is mitigating all the threats that we have at any given time and trying to pivot with the amount of personnel we have. Sometimes it could be daunting in the sense of like the agents are humans and they have lives and they have families, and the amount of work that we have on a daily basis. Sometimes it's tough. You'd have to sometimes you have to, how would I say, measure out your priorities, what's more important at the time, and like kind of move and go to and fro all the time.
Okay, great. Next question. Maybe we'll do three from the webinar and three from the YouTube. How's
Okay,
that?
sounds good.
Okay.
Next question is from Miranda. She said, if you could go back to the start of your career, what advice would you give yourself?
Mm. I would say focus more on my studies and try to get as much real world experience as you can get. And when I mean real world experience is apply for those internships. Um,
Hmm.
Try to just go and do reach out to a local police department and ask for a ride along. Join explorers. Do any of that stuff. It depends on what age you are, right? If you're like in your early teens, explorers are more prone to that. If you're entering college or doing a dual enrollment at a high school and you're doing a college enrollment, go to the criminal justice department, ask them what kind of experiences they can get for you guys, and go use those, right? You can go to one place and, experience one thing, you can go to another. I would say do your own research. Like I hear a lot of students that say, I want to go to a very specific agency, right? And because there's a lot of TV shows that involve that agency. What you see on TV is not reality. What you see on TV is made for TV. Go and ask the questions, see what is real. Just reach out. Like all these agencies, whether it be state, local, federal, they want to take students in. They want you to experience the job, not to the extent of a full officer, you can't respond to calls and stuff, but there's people dying to explain the job to you. And I think a lot of it is sometimes the students expect all that stuff to come to you as opposed to you going and getting it, right?
Right.
And it's the same thing in life, right? Go get it. Like nothing's gonna come to you if you don't move. So go get it. If that's something you're interested in, go for it.
Excellent, excellent. And that's what we've been trying to do more and more in these
Mhm.
criminal justice field experiences, special topics, the special topics class where the students are placed in a citizens academy. They get to do a ride along, all of this. So we're trying to, really make this even bigger. So
Mhm.
if there are any kind of like internship, I don't want to put you on the spot. That's not true. I'm lying. I do want to put you on the spot in
Mhm.
front of everybody. No, no. Um, are there internship possibilities that we could place our students
Yeah.
with Department of Homeland Security?
The last cohort, the last DHS tour we did, I passed out the internship packages to all of them. Tomorrow,
Excellent.
tonight I'll email it to you so you can pass through the
Excellent.
German judges. I think the next internship packages are due early June or early July, and that's probably for the fall term.
Excellent.
And yeah, there's an interview process. You go through an interview process. You got to
Sure.
submit a resume.
Got to go
Um,
through a clearance,
got to go through a clearance.
character background
Cor-
investigation, the whole.
Correct. And then
Yep.
after you're done with that, there has been students in the past that have done the HSI internship. As a matter of fact, I was doing panel interviews and I had two of my students of class in my class, and I had to say, hey, there's a conflict for me. You need to put other panelists to interview them because they were currently in my class at the time. And
Yeah.
they heard about it because I offered it up to them.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a minimal requirement. You don't have to spend 40 hours a week there, but they're going to place you in different groups. Matter of fact, yesterday I was at the firing range, and we're doing our quarterly qualifications. I believe there was 3 interns there at the time. And the fire instructors let them shoot. They were able to, see all the stuff that we did. They were able to partake in defensive tactics and
Excellent.
tactics training the houses and stuff. So it's not always boring. Some of it is
Excellent.
is very good. Yeah,
All right. Well, listen, as soon as you send me that email, I'm running with it. So
for sure.
that's great. Thank you. All right, Ken, last question from the webinar, and then we'll go to the YouTube.
Sounds good. Next question we got from Jennifer. She asked, what are the qualities that you are looking for from applicants to be successful in the agency?
Good question.
Mhm. I'm going to take the question as an entry level kind of like intro for the agency. So when you're looking at maturity, right, for your age, responsibility, the job you have a huge responsibility in the job. As a federal agent, when any agency, it's daunting, right? Civil rights, criminal rights, everything for individuals. You have to know all this stuff. Intelligence, um, you know, pay attention to your grades. A lot of times your grades in your class are reflective of the amount of responsibility you're going to take on the job, right? Um, Effort. Like, have you done anything besides just the basics? Um, that would include internships. It would include, ride-alongs, any of that stuff that you can get into. But those are primarily the qualities. I mean, for the job itself, there are requirements. Every agency has different ones. You got to pass a background check. Probably have to do a polygraph. You got to do multiple interview stages. You have to have some real-world experience at times. So, you students have a lot of opportunities in the sense of like when you're working at your clubs, right? Or like for example, Cameron and Eddie, all this is extra for them. This isn't part of their packages, but they're going above and beyond what just the student experience of just getting your grades out, right?
Right.
All this is extra effort. Any extra effort that you show and you can portray that in your either your resume or your interview or whatever it may be, that shows responsibility, character, stuff like that. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Great. Okay, thank you. Eddie, let's bring it home with the YouTube questions. Let's just pick, two really good ones, okay?
All right.
Eddie is with the Fischler Academy, and he's one of my he's my right hand. Cameron's my left hand. Okay. Go ahead, Eddie.
All right. Tom Gainey asked, I'm curious what kind of training for federal was like when you started. So what was training like when you were first starting out?
Sure. Training for my particular agency, we attend roughly, I'm going to go for the agent portion of it. The other portion is for custom inspectors, about the same thing. So we attend, most federal agency attend what's called FLETC, or the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Georgia. So let's say you get hired, a regular criminal investigator slash special agent would spend 3 months in a very rigid criminal investigator training program run by the accreditation department of FLETC. And once you're done with that, you get a certificate that says you're a trained criminal investigator. That doesn't matter what agency you're with. Each agency typically has an add-on. So for HSI, particularly, it's 3 months, where you'll learn the particulars of what the agency does, right? So like for ours, it'll be how this agency likes you to shoot to the level that we have at our agency. Tactics, training, customs law, immigration law, criminal law, like any type of all the laws that we enforce. Um, Physical training, you're looking at always be prepared to run a mile and a half in a certain time frame. Have some strength training in your background. Um, you can run the gamut. You can have agents that are all muscle and they can lift a lot but don't run so fast. Then you have agents that are skinny and they run fast. That doesn't put you anywhere. They're just standards, right? And you have to be prepared to get good grades even in the academy. You learn the materials and you take it. If you don't know how to shoot a gun, you're gonna be taught how to shoot a gun. As a matter of fact, they don't want you to know how to shoot a gun when you get there. They want to be able to teach you how to shoot it, to do it right. So yeah, there's any different thing. As far as training along the career, anything you do new, you're gonna get trained on it. So, if let me give you a tough one. Counter-proliferation investigations. What is that? Smuggling of military or different parts of weapons and stuff that are not for export in any manner. So if you get assigned to that group, you're going to go do a course on, a 1 month course on counter-proliferation investigations. So nobody will ever really throw you out there. But the best, training and experience is experience. So when you're hands-on and you learn stuff, that's when you learn.
Great. Eddie, last one, okay? But let's bring it home.
All right. Ashley Martinez asked, how does Homeland Security ensure public safety during national emergencies?
So national emergencies. So that's a very broad term, national emergency. So, if there's like a terrorist threat, you may have command centers set up in certain areas. You may have, DHS, NIMS activated. You may have multiple state and locals, everybody responding to a certain area. I'll give you an example. I was involved a few years ago. There was a shooting at Fort Lauderdale International Airport, where an individual shot multiple people and killed them. As part of that investigation, like it was deemed critical. All federal agencies, state, local in the area responded to the area. And not one person is doing one thing, right? It's like you're passing along information. And this agency may have this type of information, this one, another one. Usually there's an incident command. That individual is directing all the traffic back and forth. So there's different aspects of it. There's like, if there's let's say there's a threat of a terrorist coming in and the identity, well, at that point, all like ports of entry, all like state and locals, like Coast Guard or anybody on a boat or anybody on a plane would be hyper vigilant, right? And you're just like looking for different stuff. You're trying to find the individual. I would say overall, it's a team effort, right? If it's an emergency to that juncture, everything will happen that needs to happen.
Great. All right. Any last thoughts before we end? Anything that wasn't already asked that you'd like to say? Any closing remarks?
Mm, no, I mean, from the person, worrying about enforcement, it is what it is. Immigration is the priority now. Um, the agency, I can speak for my own agency, HSI, and to, kind of mirror it, like every agency in the government that I've ever worked with. Yeah, we may butt heads on our end of it, but there's always the one mission, right? To arrest whoever needs to get arrested and make sure the public is safe. Um, and as far as like if career in law enforcement, you know, I love it. Like, any type of law enforcement, right? Like find what the niche is for you, right? If you want to be kind of like a community police representative or help your community, you're probably looking at your local department. If you want to be state, it's probably your FHP or your FDLE. If you want to be, uh, my badge that essentially I can go anywhere I want, right? Like
Right.
if you want to be federal, you can go anywhere you want, right? And many instances you're going foreign countries. Like you're taking your case where you want to take your case. So, it's just it's a how to say it's a great environment, great world to be in. But you got to be tough, right? Have expectations for yourself. And I would say one of the most important things, if you're looking for a career in law enforcement, don't give up. Like if you really, really want to do the right things that you got to do in life. Don't get in trouble, all that good stuff. But if you fail in one area, don't be afraid to keep trying. Like, if they say, hey, you got to wait the year, get better, push forward, and you'll be all right.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I know that you're very busy, beyond busy, so you made time for us, and I appreciate it so much. You are an amazing role model and mentor for our students, and I thank you. I thank you for being here tonight.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Grace. Thanks for having me.
Thank
Hope
you.
somebody
Thank
got
you.
something
Thank
out
you.
of it.
I think so. I think they did. So thank you so much for watching tonight, and we'll see you next week. I think next week is Ed Denzel, but I'm not sure. I know we have Reynaldo Franklin that's also going to be on, and he's from the Department of Homeland Security, a colleague of Professor Roberts, but he's working specifically with the examination of human trafficking cases, I think, right? So I know we have Reynaldo Franklin.
Next week it is
Tell me.
Dr. Durham.
Oh my God.
I was saying Ed was the week before.
Oh my God. So now that's great. So Dr. Durham is on next week, which is so phenomenal. That's awesome. She's going to talk about what is it like to be a mom? What is it like to be a mother of a law enforcement officer? And she's going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, she's a psychologist. Plus, she's the dean of our school. So, we have a lot going on next week, and I look forward to that live stream.